Ron. Welcome back to American Warrior Radio. We just had a great break. I hope you did too. And we got a ton of information to bring back to you of great import.
We really do. So grab your pen and pencil because, Glenn, we want to talk about some really important topics. As a deputy director of the Florida Veterans Foundation, we had a big conference call here about a week ago. You and I were talking about this during the break, where the chronic issue is unemployment among our Guard and Reserves.
Exactly.
And folks, if you're listening here in Florida or somewhere else, and you know a vet that is looking for work, there are resources out there. If you're in Florida, I want to shoot a website out there that Colonel Pendergrast, who is the executive director of the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, the FVF, the Florida Veterans Foundation, is the nonprofit arm of the FDVA, all this alphabet soup, Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. But he wanted to share with us, as you said, the import of this issue regarding high unemployment about our guardsmen as well as active duty that go ahead and either retire or get out. It's really important and it's urgent.
Yeah, and what were some of the statistics that affected the local MP company that's in the Guard?
The colonel was speaking about general unemployment among veterans, and then he singled out one particular unit that had up to 40% unemployment. And I happened to chime in during that part of the conference call, and I said, you wouldn't be referring to the 715th MP company right here in Melbourne that just got back from Afghanistan? And he said, that's it. So we want to really push this, and there's a great website that folks can go to register, and I just want you to explore it. You've got to register, and there's plenty of opportunity to scan jobs, to put your resume in and what have you. But let me throw this out there. Get online and just plug in veterans.employflorida, two words strung together there, veterans.employflorida.com. And I encourage everybody to go there and register and just check it out, because there's some really good stuff. Anything that we bring you here on American Warrior Radio, we're going to have sifted through. We're going to bring you, like Glenn said, the straight poop. So stay tuned for more information. As a matter of fact, you have some news about Colonel Prendergast possibly visiting?
Yeah, I think he's going to visit with us either in person or by radio, by
phone
telephone.
Interview. Yeah, we can do that.
You
We
know,
have the
whatever
technology.
thing you hold of your ear in the future, and talk about some of the things going on with the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm sure he'll mention some things about the Florida Veterans Foundation along with that. I know the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs is setting up some excellent programs to address the problem of growing unemployment amongst our younger veterans that exceeds the regular workforce out there by a bunch.
Yeah, the national average, we all hear it on the news, somewhere in the neighborhood of 9% or so, but nationally the number is 12 to 15% for our veterans.
Just terrible.
It really is, but then when you throw a number out like 40%, then people really open up and say, what?
Then you better jump up and pay attention.
Exactly, because why? Why should somebody hire a vet, Glenn?
Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons why to do that. Let me lead this in by saying, not all veterans, there's a wealth of information out there, as there should be, about services available for our seriously disabled and wounded veterans, whether it be physically disabled or mentally disabled or both, due to their war service protecting us and making our freedom continue as it is. And I worry, and I know Garen worries, that sometimes with all that information out there, somewhere along the way it becomes misinterpreted by potential future employers to think all veterans are in this category. I don't want to touch them. They're going to be a problem. They're going to raise my insurance costs, yada, yada, yada.
It's just not so.
It's just not so. The bulk of the people, fortunately, are coming back are not seriously wounded or injured. And, when employers hire veterans, they add exceptional, let me underline that, employees with character, courage, creativity, team building skills, and discipline that will help their business grow and succeed more than ever. America needs veterans' proven skills, knowledge, and work ethic to fire up our economic engine and to invest in our future. You know what fired up our economic engine after World War II? veterans.
Exactly, and the same holds true for our Vietnam era vets.
Exactly.
It's a
vital, universal truth.
It really is, folks, and I know pretty much we may be preaching to the choir, because anybody that's listening in to American Warrior Radio right here on WMEL already more than likely is a patriotic American that supports the troops, but we want to encourage you to get the word out. Hire vets. Hire vets, because they bring so much to the table. Discipline is the one thing you mentioned, because a lot of folks think I'm owed a paycheck. Not our veterans. They are willing to work and work hard to impress their employer.
Absolutely. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I don't remember if it was Colonel Prendergrass or somebody else, but this is so true. We're talking about the cream of America's youth. The cream. The top 1% of America's youth. You don't find the kinds of talents and skills and dedication and devotion found in a potential veteran as an employee, potential employee of a veteran, in the normal population of people who are out there seeking jobs, or not seeking jobs as the case may be.
True.
But, these people not only make our lives free, who else would I hire? I wouldn't hire anybody but a veteran, quite frankly, if I were running my own business.
Exactly. The value cannot be underestimated or underappreciated, because they are, like you said, they're the cream of the crop. I mean, as we're out in the neighborhood and we're talking with folks and meeting and greeting folks that maybe have no affiliation or association with the military, they can appreciate those things, those special qualities that our warfighters bring to the workplace.
Absolutely.
Well, along with that, so remember, veterans.employflorida.com, or look up your local resource if you're outside the listening area. But if you're in Florida, veterans.employflorida.com. And as Glenn mentioned, we're going to effort to get retired Colonel Prendergast, who's the new leader of the FDVA, on the program sometime in the near future. I'm sure that'll be a great interview. A couple things I want to mention real quick. We've talked before about how the changes are taking place in the VA, and I have to say, I give kudos to Secretary Shinseki and his staff, because we have had on a past episode of American Warrior Radio the gentleman who heads up the PDBR. That's the Physical Disability Board of Review.
Right.
And in a moment you can share with them what that means. But we've had him on in the past, and he shared with me via email the other day some really wonderful news. And I shared that with you.
Yeah, the VA is going to go send out a letter to everybody in the eligibility criteria who separated from the military after 9/11 up until the end of December 2009, who were rated either 0, 10, or 20% by the military.
And boarded out, basically.
And boarded out. They got a medical board retirement. They didn't get, not retirement,
discharge.
Separation.
Right,
discharge.
separation.
And of course, most of those guys, if they're smart, guys and gals, I should say, if they're smart, turn right around and apply to the VA, and many times the VA gives them a much higher rating. That's what the purpose of this board is to let these people have an avenue to apply to that says, I believe I got underrated by the military service. Here's my VA rating decision if they happen to have one that shows a much higher rating. Take that all into consideration, and then the board makes its own decision, independent, and can award a higher percentage rating to the person separating from the military. And if you can get 30% or higher, you then become a military retiree with retired pay and access to base facilities and medical care for the rest of your life.
Huge difference in benefits.
Huge difference.
Space available travel on military transports.
And it's, as Garen was leading in there, it's wonderful that the VA is going to pick up the ball at the urging of the Physical Disability Board of Review and contact these people proactively and make them aware of this board. Because like so many great initiatives that have come along in at least the past 2 years, it seems having a struggling at getting the word out to the right people so that they apply for things that they're entitled to and have earned through service to our great country.
And I'll throw this in there. This will impact roughly 70,000 of our warfighters.
There you go.
70,000 people. Let's just be polite here and say they got lowballed by the Department of Defense upon discharge.
I got other words, but that's that's it.
So the bottom line is the VA is taking the responsibility. They're going to mail out the letters. All those folks have an opportunity to apply for an upgrade in their evaluation to where they might get medically retired and have those additional benefits.
Absolutely, and
So hats off to the VA.
well, hats off to them, and hope people will that are eligible in that category will take advantage of that, because the success rate is pretty high with this board.
It truly is, bordering on 50% of the cases they review. They actually recommend for a
And let me tell you, your only other option is to go to the Board of Correction and Military Records and ask them. Long process, and my experience shows you got about a 10% chance that you're going to get a favorable decision, not a 50% chance.
Exactly. So we're really thankful and appreciative of Undersecretary Hickey, who took this ball and ran with it. The other issue, and you kind of alluded to it there, is the stop loss. You mentioned programs that don't get publicized, and there's money left in these pools of these pockets of the government that they're trying to pay out. The parameters for that program, stop loss, define that a little bit.
Well, basically, just keep it simple, was that the military, for whatever reason, probably you had some kind of special skill, kept you on involuntarily beyond your separation or retirement date from the military for convenience of the government, they call it.
Always convenience.
Yeah.
So if I'm a guy that I had my orders and I'm going to be getting out in March, and then come the month before they say, oh, we're going to hold you over, I'm due some money.
That's right. And under this stop loss program, which we've talked about many times on this show, of course we don't reach the whole world obviously because of the low participation rate, that it's been extended for the 4th time that I know of to December 31st. And what's at stake here is for every month that you were involuntarily extended beyond your separation or retirement date for the military, is you're owed $500 tax-free dollars. $500 for each of those months.
So if you know a military member, if your neighbor or your co-worker, someone was in the military and recently discharged, just throw it out there. Hey, do you know anything about that stop loss? And then, of course, if they have questions, they can go to appt.org or call Glenn's office. You haven't given your office number out yet.
Yeah, that's a good time to break that in there. You can always reach us Monday through Friday at 633-2012. That's area code 321-633-2012. And we'll look forward to taking care of your needs, guiding you in the right direction. We'll probably end up having you come in the office, but that way we can start, get the basics down, and advise you of what evidence to bring and go from there with you.
Exactly. Another hot topic I want to bring up, which has been, everybody wants more money, but our veterans deserve it, I'm thinking, more than most, particularly if it's a government payout. Is there a cost of living increase on the books?
Hallelujah, finally. In 2008, actually, was the last time we got one. 2009, we didn't get one, and 2010, we didn't, well, no, other way around.
Yeah,
2009. It's been 2 years since we got a cost of living allowance increase, and that included military retirees and surviving spouses benefits, the whole 9 yards. And now we're going to get a 3.6% cost of living allowance, the first in 2 years, so hallelujah. And the way that works is you'll see that they say it's effective 1 December, and then you'll call my office and say it wasn't in my check on 1 December.
And why is that, Glenn?
And that's because the government and Social Security, VA benefits, and anything else they pay a month behind. So January is when you'll see that first increased money.
Payable the first of the month following the month you became eligible.
Absolutely.
So January 1, it's actually awarded December, but you won't see it until January 1.
The New Year's present after the Christmas holidays.
Exactly. All right, so those are some really hot topics, but you had some other stuff on the agenda here through our stack of stuff.
Yeah, we got several, I think, very informative topics for you, and then some may apply to some, and definitely all won't apply to all, as they say.
What's this about a clothing allowance?
Well, very interesting. First off, you can apply for a clothing allowance really anytime between the 1st of July and the 1st of August every year. It's paid in the month of August. It's an annual clothing allowance, and it's an allowance intended to offset the extra cost of clothing that may have become ripped or torn or soiled due to treatment for VA service-connected disabilities.
So if you got a skin disorder that irreparably damages your outer garments, you'd qualify for this too.
Yeah, the cream they're giving you or whatever treatment.
But what is it? We talking 50, 60 bucks?
Currently we're talking $716 a year.
Oh my.
And that's gone up significantly.
And that's tax-free too.
Yes it is.
Okay, so that's great. But now the VA has actually expanded that, and they're going to be paying what they call multiple clothing allowances?
Yeah, they will now pay more than one clothing allowance if your service-connected, the nature of your service-connected disabilities warrant the payment of more than one. So, for instance, if you got, because of your service-connected disability, you wear a prosthetic or orthopedic appliance that, of course, tends to wear out or tear your clothing, you're eligible for the clothing allowance. Some of those examples, just to let you know what we're talking about, are artificial limbs, rigid extremity brace, spinal or cervical brace, wheelchair, and many others. Due to your service-connected disability, or if a veteran who, because of a service-connected skin condition, uses a medication that Guerin was just talking about that causes damage to their clothing, they can also be eligible and are eligible for payment of the annual clothing allowance. Okay, now, as I said, the VA has now said you can qualify for more than one. Normally, I would think this is not going to be more than two, but I guess there's always some situation where that could be possible.
Sure.
But for sure, you could be wearing a brace because of a service-connected disability.
Let's say a knee injury.
A knee injury, and be getting a clothing allowance.
But not one of those
that.
neoprene braces. The doctor has to prescribe, and the prosthetics has to give you a rigid brace that may produce wear and tear.
Yeah, rigid brace is the key word there, so that's a good thing to foot stomp.
Okay, so they get a clothing allowance for that. If
they
it's
get $716 for that.
Okay, now if I got a skin disorder on my upper arm, maybe psoriasis or something, I have to use all those ointments.
Yeah, and that's service connected, then you can get another $716 because it's another part of the body, and that affects different type of clothing than the knee does in this example. So.
Exactly, and this kind of all filters back to what I was saying about the proactive nature of this current administration, Secretary for Department of Veterans Affairs. They're doing some good work.
Oh, absolutely.
So hats off to Shinseki and his crew.
And let's finish off this topic by saying, again, remind you that right now you got between now and 1 August of 2012 to apply for this. How do you do that? Well, for once, I'm not going to direct you to my office. You go to the prosthetics clinic out at the VA clinic, and that's where you make application for this. And in fact, I think they do it online now. So
I'm sure, which is a time saver and probably makes things go much smoother.
Oh, absolutely, and then you should get paid towards the end of August every year.
Exactly. And when you're at your VA clinic, if you live outside the, I'm not sure what the delimiting miles is. Is it 25 miles away from the clinic that they pay a travel allowance? Just want to throw that out. Check with them.
I'm just going to say check with them. My goodness, that changes quicker than I don't even know what a good analogy is, but it changes all the time, and it's dependent on how much money they got. As they get low on money, the mileage seems to edge out a bit.
Exactly, but I will say that the travel allowance used to be, and this is for traveling to the VA for service-connected treatment of a disorder, it used to be like pennies.
12.5 cents.
Now it's actually close to the corporate rate of some 40 cents a mile.
It's 40-something cents a mile right now. I think it's about 42 cents a mile.
It's a wonderful benefit. You got to check into it. What are some other things that are hot topics?
Okay, just started 1 October. If a veteran's death occurs in a VA facility a contracted nursing home, and that's people who have service-connected disabilities 70% or higher that the VA contracts in a local community nursing home, or a state veterans nursing home, because the VA helps subsidize those, or are traveling at VA expense to get VA medical care, are entitled now to not a $350 but a $700 burial allowance. Let's just leave it at burial allowance. The increase, I need to make it clear, the increased benefit only applies to that eligibility category I just gave you. It does not apply to someone who, I don't know, pick a method, passes away at home. Then they're still entitled only to a $350 burial allowance.
But under those circumstances, it'd be double now, $700 if it's
no,
not if they not. I'm saying under the new program, if you're under the VA's care through a nursing home or what have you, you're going to
correct.
Yeah, that's what I was.
But
getting
it's
at.
not everybody, so they couldn't have made it more confusing. Why did it make some of the people eligible and not all of them? And then to make it even further confusing, they changed the plot allowance, which also used to be $350. And any veteran who's eligible for burial in a national cemetery, not buried in a national cemetery, is now entitled. Let me say this. Foot stomp it.
Save those online.
1 October 2011 is now entitled for $700 plot allowance.
Well, that's a big news. That's a big difference, and we appreciate it
And
again.
that's every veteran who's not buried in a national cemetery but eligible for burial in a national, which is
Can we
like
take it?
pretty much a lot of the veterans. Let me tell you, to be qualified for any kind of payment for burial or plot allowance, that you have to be receiving money from the VA, either for service-connected disability or for pension, which is for non-service-connected disabilities, or if and or but World of VA benefits, or you're not receiving it because you didn't waive your military retired pay. But that only applies to veterans from way back.
Exactly. Hey, we're coming to the close of another edition of American Warrior Radio. We had a warrior, a warfighter on the line. He's over in Afghanistan, but I don't think we're going to be able to get him on this episode. But listen to future episodes of American Warrior Radio where we will introduce another frontline phone call. It's always interesting.